Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Daryl Hayden Gunawan from Group 1, and with my other friends, Iwan Buyung Tanamas, Iwan Adli, Nada Nadiwatul Aulia, and Nurul Wulandari, we will be talking about exploring inflectional morphology, understanding word form variations across languages. And now let's move to the first slide. Sorry, I'll put my camera here. Okay. And okay, so what is morphology? Morphology is the study of word formation, or pretty much how words are constructed and their internal structures. But to make it sound a little bit more understandable, I will, let's just say, give a simpler explanation to it. So morphology itself is the study of how words are formed. It looks at how the word is built and what smaller pieces it has and how those small pieces change the meaning or the grammar of the words. And there are two types. And what are those types, Daryl? Well, those types are first, derivational morphology. They create new lexemes and often changes word category, for example, from adjective to noun or from verb to noun. Well, let me give like a more in-depth explanation to what this is. Okay, so derivational morphology pretty much changes like the useness or the meaning of the words, like for example, how teach plus er becomes teacher. It has completely different meanings, don't you think? I mean, it is not you think. I mean, it is the fact that they have completely different meanings. For example, teach is only teaching, while teacher is, well, the teacher, the person that is teaching. For example, like, well, not for example, I mean your teacher and teach. They're like completely different thing. Or like other example is happy plus-ness become happiness. Happy is an adjective, while happiness is a noun. Happiness is the word that you use to address the state of being happy. Therefore, happiness, it changed the category of the word from adjective, which is, adjective, which is happy, to noun, which is happiness. Got me? Got what I'm saying now? So it pretty much changed the meaning or the use of it. I mean, well, not really. I mean, inflectional morphology also changed the use, but I'm pretty sure you got what I'm saying, right? Well, let's move to inflectional morphology so you can understand better what I'm saying. Now, inflectional morphology modifies the words for grammatical context or grammatical rules. Well, pretty much the same thing. It still have the core meaning and the category. Like for example, teach plus ing becomes teaching, which means teach in the present. You are currently teaching. You got what I mean? So when you add teach plus ing, it doesn't like creates new words that have like a new meaning, like teach plus become teacher, but it just becomes the teach plus ing, which is like a more like grammatical context, like grammatical rules that explains that teach verb is currently happening. You know what I mean? So inflectional morphology is pretty much things that are grammatical, that change grammar, while derivational morphology is things that change word category or create new meaning. Okay, you got me. You must get me. It's quite easy. Okay, it is already explained here. As you can see, a process of word modification to express grammatical categories, which is inflection. It modifies grammar. I mean, it's express grammatical categories, while derivation changes the whole entire meaning and creates new word. And those inflectional categories can change like the number, the person, the tense, the case, the gender or noun class, and the aspect of mood. Things that suits the grammar in here is inflectional, like suffix that change the suffix that change the grammar. Yeah, suffix that change the only the grammar, not the entire meaning, is supposed to make inflection. And now let's move to the next slide, which is types of inflection numbers. Okay, this is pretty easy. I'm pretty sure you guys have already understand it. Okay, so let me put it here first. Okay, so in English, there's only two types of inflection of numbers, which is singular and plural. For example, dog plus s become dogs, which is used to refer to more than one dog. So dogs, that means more than one dog. And when you say dog, it means only one dog. And when you say box, there's only one box. But when you say boxes, means there's more than one boxes. And this is like the common and regular nouns. I mean, the common and regular suffix that is added to nouns in English, which is like as or es. But there's also some special case, or people call it irregular plurals, where the suffix doesn't change into as or es, but rather change into all these unique ones are like mice, oxen, feet, and children. Or one other example is sheep. Sheep have the same form, whether it is singular or plural. It is still written as sheep, sheep. But now in other languages, like for example, in Yapik, there's a new number inflection category, which is dual, which is used when you explain, like there's two nouns, there's two items, like singular is kayak, dual is kayak, and more than three is plural. So not like English where they only count one and more than one. In Yapik, they count one, two, and then more than three. Okay. And this other one is number marking on verbs. Oh yeah, so in other languages, like for example in Latin, they change the verb to suit the number agreement. English also does, but they only barely does so, while Latin takes it a whole other notch. Like from amo become amamus, while sorry, amamus, while in English they typically only change the suffix, while in Latin it's completely new word. And now we'll take a look at it. Sorry. No. Where's my, okay, sorry guys. Now we'll talk about the types of inflection, which is persons. Okay, so in languages like, where should I put this? I think let's put it here first, because we don't really need to talk about it. Okay, so in languages like Latin and German, they change the verb to like give us like a more clear meaning to show who are speaking in it. Like they change the verb. Sorry about that. Okay, they change the verb. So for example, in amare, which is mean to love, it will change into amo when it is talking about singular, like only one person talking about it, and will be and it will be I mean not singular, sorry. It will be amo if it's the first person, which is the speaker, and it will be amas if it's the hearer, and then it will be amat if it's the third person. So it really is kind of different than English, like they change the verb instead of us changing the pronoun, right? As you can see in English, they change the pronoun, but in Latin and in German, they change the verb. And other than that, they also have Mohawk. I mean, in Mohawk verbs, what is Mohawk again? Mohawk is an Iroquoian language. Sorry, the demonstrate person marking on nouns. So yeah, so in Mohawk, I'm not really familiar with the language, but in Mohawk, they take a different approach to decide whether this person is the first speaker, the second speaker, or the third speaker. I mean, the third person, sorry, not speaker. I mean, the first person, second person, or the third person. While in English, we change the noun. Okay, it's my throat, your throat, her throat, his throat. And in Latin and German, they change the verb, which is from amo, amamu, they change the verb. While in, everyone change the verb in Latin and German, while in Mohawk, they change the noun. Pretty unique, huh? The sakit, they just change the noun instead of the verb to show that it is the first speaker, the second speaker, the third, or the fourth speaker. And they even, I mean, the third or Yeah, the third speaker, the third person. Sorry again. I'm so sorry for always like um always twisting my tongue because yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, I suppose. Okay, so again, it is the first person, second person, and they also differentiate between females and males for the third person. Sorry. And also in Mohawk, they also differentiate between inclusive and exclusive, whether the speaker is in the word or they are not in the word. Like for example, if they are in the word, they change it to Tewa, and if they are not, like they, like you, I, like, and if they are not, it is in Yakwa exclusive. So yeah, that's pretty much it for types of inflection and person. And now we move to types of gender and noun class now. Okay, this is actually quite complicated, but this is very much
Okay, so I'm so sorry, miss, but my Zoom my Zoom ran out of time and I couldn't really show my camera anymore. But this is only the last part for my part, so I think I hope that you can tolerate this because it's not going to be so long. It's going to be quite short. Okay, so I will be explaining about types of inflection, which is gender and noun class. And what is grammatical gender? Well, grammatical gender is how a language splits noun into groups. Like the groups is masculine, feminine, and neuter. Like 43% of language use that system. Like they assign certain noun into masculine, feminine, or neuter, and those type of systems are very popular or are mostly in European languages like French and German. And now the assignment, we have two ways to assign or like to see how these nouns are assigned. And the first one is, let's do natural first. Natural is when the noun's gender actually matches real life. Like for example, um man is masculine, so it's quite easy. We just use the masculine words, the masculine nouns or article that are required in the language. And when it's woman, that means it's feminine, so we use the required feminine words in here, like feminine nouns or feminine article. While arbitrary is quite unique, really. Arbitrary doesn't match the real life gender because it's an object. It has no gender. Like, sorry, sorry. It's an object. It has no gender, so it doesn't really follow any logic. It has no logic at all. But they are assigned randomly by, well, by the language, whether it's French or German. Well, example are here. Table is feminine, and they use a feminine article. Look, it's arbitrary because it is arbitrary. It doesn't make sense. I mean, there's no logic in it. It is only assigned by their language. And bureau is actually text in English, like text, another table. It's masculine and its article is le, which is masculine, and it is arbitrary. And now we will see another way to like differentiate between whether it is feminine or masculine. Spanish words, they use this phonological shape based on how the word sounds. If it start or ends with an, I mean, if it ends with an A, like the sound of it is like a la espada, it means it's feminine. Or if it ends with an O, it means it's masculine, like la espado. Both of it is not an actual word. Like you must have heard of it like before. I'm not fluent in Spanish, so I couldn't really give an like example, but that's pretty much how that goes. And other thing is derivational morphemes, pretty much quite the same idea. It's about how certain endings automatically create a gender, not like in Spanish here. I mean, yeah, same idea, but just a little bit different. While in Spanish, it focuses on how the word sounds. In Derivation Morphin, it focuses on how the word looks. If it ends with an ang, it means it's a feminine word, and if it's and in a chan, it means it's a neuter words or like neutral. And yeah, this is like just the example, same thing. This is the same exact thing. And also, You can also see here another example, like in agreement rules, like in unhomoperfect, it use homo, which is masculine, which means this is masculine. Unfemperfect, it use femme, which is feminine. And in German, it is man, which means masculine, and it is Frau, which means feminine. Okay, so I think that's pretty much from my part, and we will move to part two, which E1 will be explaining about. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, so right now is my part to tell the presentation, and in this slide I will talk about gender and noun classes. So noun classes are systems used by language to group nouns into categories. These categories help speakers understand how nouns behave in grammar, how they are referenced, and how they agree with verbs or adjectives. Many people know only the basic gender categories like masculine, feminine, and neuter. But in reality, noun class systems can be much more complex and can be based on many other ideas. Some languages do not use gender at all and instead classify nouns based on things like animacy, shape, or cultural importance. Okay, so for example, in Algonquian language, nouns are divided into animate and inanimate. This classification is not always logical from a modern perspective. It is not only about whether something is alive or not. Some non-living objects are treated as animate because in the culture or linguistic history of the speakers, those objects were viewed as important or active in some way. Okay, so a classic example in Ojibwa, snowshoe, is considered animate, even though it is an object. Meanwhile, many everyday objects remain inanimate. Some languages have very detailed noun class systems. One of the most interesting example is the Yuchi. I don't know how to say it. Yuchi or what is this? Yuchi has 11 noun classes, and these classes can be based on social meaning, gender, relationships, or the physical characteristics of the objects. So, for example, some classes are specifically for male or female kin or kind. Some are for some are for respected individuals. Others are for vertical, horizontal, or round inanimate objects. This shows that noun classes are not only grammatical. They also reflect how a culture views relationships, people, and the physical world. In short, noun classes teach us that grammar is deeply connected to culture, society, and how people organize the world in their minds. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, case. Case is a system that marks the grammatical role of a noun in a sentence. It answers questions like who is doing the action, who receives the action, who owns something, where or when does something happen. Okay, so different languages use cases in different ways. English use word order more than case endings, but languages like Latin, Russian, Turkish, and Japanese rely heavily on case. In Latin, for example, one noun can appear in many forms depending on its case. The noun stella, meaning star, change endings to show it functions in a sentence. So here are the important Latin cases. So there's in a PPT slides. So maybe you can look. So the first one, nominative, the subject of a sentence. And the next one is genitive, shows possessions. Dative, the indirect object, often the receiver of something. Accusative, the direct object of the action. Ablative expresses things like location, instrument, or cause. Vocative used to call or address someone directly. Locative, used for specific places. Okay, so some language organize case differently. The familiar system is nominative, accusative, which marks the subject differently from object. English technically use this system to trough pronouns like he, him, she, or her. Another system is ergative, which marks the subject of a transitive verb differently from the subject of an intransitive verb. This can feel very different from English, but it shows how flexible grammar can be across language. So overall, case systems help us understand how language shows relationships between actions, people, and objects. Cases reduce ambiguity and give speakers more freedom in rearranging word order because the meaning is carried in the endings, not the sentence structure. So, okay, we move to the next slide and we're gonna talk about tense and aspect. Okay, tense describes when an event happens compared to the time of speaking. There are three basic tenses. Present, the event happens at the same time as speaking. The second one, past, the event happened before speaking. The third, future, the event will happen after speaking. Language show tense in different ways. Some use inflections where the verb changes form. Example, walk, walk for past tense, walk with ed. Others use periphrastic constructions, meaning they use extra words like will or have. Example, will walk, have eaten. Aspect is another idea that relates to how an action unfolds in time, but this slide focuses more on tense. Okay. One interesting example of a complex tense systems comes from the Washoe language. Washoe divides time very precisely, much more precisely than English. English basically just has past, present, and future, but Washoe has several layers within past and future. For example, distant past refers to events long before the speaker's lifetime or very far in the past. So recent past means today or yesterday. Intermediate past refers to events earlier than today but not extremely far. Near future covers even from now up to about 1 hour ahead. Intermediate future is for events later today or a bit further in the future. Distant future refers to events happening tomorrow or even later. So, this shows that some languages care very deeply about the exact timing of events because it matters culturally, socially, or historically. Washoe system helps capture very precise meanings that English would need many extra words to express. It highlights how language can differ greatly in how they express time and how speakers conceptualize events. Okay, so that's all from me, and in the next slide I will give it to my friend, and thank you for your attention, guys.
Okay, I'm Nurul Landari, and in this slide, I will explain about types of inflection, tense, and aspect. The first one, tense on nouns. Central Alaskan Yup'ik. In most languages, tense appears only on verbs. However, Yup'ik is unique because tense can also appear on nouns. This means that noun can show when something excited or was honored. For example, ik ram ak. First, we have ikamrak, which means slid. This is the basic form without any tense or position marking. The second example is ikam ralka, which means my former sled. Here, the suffix "elka" marks past possession, meaning something that I used to own but no longer do. So it refers to a sled that used to be mine. Next is ikamarkaka, which means my sled to be. The suffix er, ki, rkaqa indicate future possession, which means the sled will become mine in the future. For example, I sled, I order, or will receive later. The next example is nulialka, which means my former wife or my late wife. Again, the suffix lqa show the past, so it refers to someone who was my wife before. And finally, my and finally we have nuliar kaka, which means my wife to be. The suffix rkaqa show future tense, referring to someone who will become my wife. So in this shows that Yupik use inflectional change on nouns to mark time not only on verbs. For the second aspect, internal composition of an event. As aspect describe how an event unfolds internally, not when it occurs. Two major aspects. The first one is perfective. Perfective is the action is completed and viewed as a whole event. So, for example, I got full, completed. So, for imperfective, the action is ongoing or repeated. For example, I'm getting full, or I get full. This language show a clearer distinction than English. So for the next slide, I will explain about other aspectual distinction. This refers to the specific stage of an event. The first one is inceptive, beginning of an action. This sentence does not focus on the process or the end, but on the moment when the action began to take place. For example, he began to beat it. In instance, the action has begun, but it is not certain that it will continue or be completed. For the next, continuative, uh, or ongoing action. This aspect emphasizes that an action is still happening now, not yet completed. For example, Tomba is reading the book. So for the next, completive, ending of an action. This aspect indicates that an action has been completed, has reached an endpoint, its endpoint. For example, the roof had been leaking. So sometimes it also indicates that something has already happened in the past, but the situation is now over. The second is quantificational aspect. This describes how often an action happens. The first one is simulfactive. Simulfactive describes an action that happens a single time and is completed quickly. For example, she chopped it once. This means the chopping happened only one time. For the next is iterative. An iterative describes an action that occurs again and again, usually in a short period. He coughed repeatedly. This means he coughed many times in a row. For the lastly is habitual. A habitual describes an action that is typical, usual, or part of a routine. It does not happen just once or only in one situation. It happens repeatedly over time because it is normal behavior. For example, dogs barks. This sentence means that barking is something dogs usually do. It is a common, regular habit of dog. The third, English characteristic aspectual marking. English does not mark aspect through inflection. Instead, it uses auxiliaries and lexical expressions. For example, inceptive. The sentence shows the beginning of an action. For example, she began to walk. It focuses on the moment when they start walking, not the whole activity. For the second is continuative. Continuative is describe an action that is still happening or continuing without stopping. For example, she keeps on walking. It highlights the ongoing nature of her working. For the third is iterative. This shows an action happens repeatedly. For example, she reads over and over. She doesn't read just once, she reads many times again and again. The lastly is habitual. Habitual describes an action that she regularly or typically does. For example, she always walks. It means walking is a habit or something she does often as part of her routine, not just in one situation. So, English expresses aspect with phrases, not with morphological change. For the next slide, I will explain about voice focus on noun phrase. Voice shifts the focus between the agent, George, and the patient, receiver. Two types. The first one is active voice. Active voice is subject performs an action. For example, the cat chased the mouse. The cat chased the mouse. The cat is subject and action is chased. The object is the mouse. So the focus is on who is doing the action. So here the cat is the one performing the action. The second is passive voice. Passive voice is subject decide the action. For example, the mouse was changed. Uh, in this sentence, the mouse is a subject because the focus is on what happened to the subject, not who did it. The sentence tells us that the mouse is the one experiencing the action. So in language like Latin, this difference appears through inflection. Second, mood, speaker's attitude and intention. Mood expresses the speaker's purpose, attitude, or type of speech acts. For example, from Sonkawa, which use different mood suffix. First one is declarative. A declarative sentence is used to give information or set a fact. For example, she is studying. This simply tells something. And the next is second, imperative. An imperative subject, an imperative sentence is used to give a command, order, or instruction. The subject you is usually understood. For example, close the door. This tells someone what to do. For the third is interrogative. Interrogative sentence is used to ask a question. It ends with a question mark. For example, are you coming? And next is potential. A potential sentence express what is possible can happen or might happen. Often use can, could, may, or might. For example, it might rain later. This shows possibility nor certainty. Um, Next, exhortative. An exhortative sentence is used to encourage, urge, or strongly suggest that someone do something. Often use let's or other encouraging word. For example, let's work together. This invites or motivates someone to take action. For the lastly, realist and irrealist. This distinguish events based on their reality status. The first one is realist. Realist refers to action or events that are true, certain, or actually happening in reality. These events are factual and not imagined. For example, she is cooking right now. This is happening in real life. So for irrealist, irrealist is refers to events that are not real, not happening, or only imagined. Imagined, happened, for or hypothetical. They might happen in the future or they might never happen at all. For example, I wish I could fly. Not real, not real, just imagine. Or if I had money, I would travel. Hypothetical situation. That's all for me. Let's continue with Nada for the next presentation. Thank you.
Hello guys, I'm Nadana Diratu Aulia, and we're going to talk about inflection. So on this slide, we can see that English has very limited inflection, and inflection means changing the form of words to show a grammar. And English used to have many endings, but most of them disappeared. So today, English is much simpler compared to older languages. And then there's number marking on nouns. Regular nouns act as like cat becomes cat, but English still has some irregular plurals, such as mouse become mice, or ox become oxen, or child become children, like that. This form comes from older stage of English. Remains of case marking possessive. So in English, case marking is mostly gone, except in pronouns. For example, I become me, and my show position, and others. So English also use as to show ownership, such as Paul's book or the parents' car, like that. And then verb inflection. English verb has a small number of inflection. We add as for the third person singular, like he walks. He walks. We add ed for a regular past form, while irregular verb change follow, such as like run becomes ran. And then we also have add ing for continuous forms, and adding n or ed for past participle, like eaten,
or
Okay, the
work.
next slide is English inflection, irregular forms. Regular versus irregular. Regular inflections follow predictable rules, like adding ed or s, and irregular inflections, however, involve unique changes like vowel alteration or complete root changes, making them less predictable. Irregular verb forms. This form sing, sang, sing, sang, sang. Go, went, gone. Eat, ate, eaten. Break, broke, broken. And then the irregular nouns, plural, singular, singular, plural. Foot become feet, mouse become mice, child become children, and ox become oxen. And then irregularity comes from old sound changes like umlaut and outlaut. Umlaut vowel change for plurals, outlaut vowel change from verb tenses. The reason this irregular form exists is because of historical sounds changes. English used vowel change called umlaut and ablaut, which affected many old words. These parents say it the modern English or the modern language. Okay, the next is closed classes. Closed classes are word groups that almost never change. They include pronouns like I, they, preposition like in and on, conjunction like and or but, determiners like the and this, and then helping verbs like is and will. And these words are used for grammar, so new words are not added to this group. The next is English language evolution. So there's three: Old English, language contact, and modern English. The first is Old English. The language had many inflection endings. Words changed their form to show things like caste, gender, number, and tense. The grammar was rich and complex. And then language contact. The English mixed with Old Norse during the Viking period. The two languages had different ending, so people start dropping inflection for communicate more easily. This made English grammar much simpler. And the third is modern English. Most inflection are gone, but some irregular forms still remain, like sing, sang, sang, eat, ate, eaten, mouse become mice, and child become children. And these are leftovers from Old English. So, in simple words, closed classes stay the same, but English has moved from a very complex language to much simpler one, and with only a few irregular forms left. So why English has a little inflection? The first is historical context. Old English. Old English was a highly inflected scientific language. Nouns, adjective, and verb were extensively marked for caste, number, gender, person, and tense, enabling flexible word order. Second, stress system changes. Stress on the first syllable in Old English led to unstressed final syllables, where inflection ending resided, being pronounced less distinctly and weakening over time. Third, language contact. Old Norse. The arrival of Old Norse speakers in northern Britain led to prolonged language contact. Despite shared vocabularies, The distinct inflectional system of Old English and Old Norse caused communication confusing, driving simplification. And fourth, inflectional confusing and simplification. The dissimilar inflectional forms between Old English and Old Norse created barriers to communication. The linguistic fiction part of mutual simplification of grammatical endings. And the last is north to south spirit. Inflectional loss began in the Norse influence, northern parts of Britain, gradually spreading southward. This led of modern English less inflect analytic nature.
Okay, so hello everyone. Back with me, Izzuddin Ali, and right now we are going to move this section paradigms and inflectional classes. So, a paradigm is basically the complete set of inflected forms that belong to a single lexeme. Think of it as a table that shows every possible grammatical form of a word. For example, earlier in the chapter, we saw four paradigms for Old English nouns and verbs, complete with number, case, tense, and person distinctions. That whole set of forms is a paradigm. Traditionally, noun paradigms are called declensions, and verb paradigms are called conjugations. But the only thing you need to hold on to is this: a paradigm shows every morphological option a word can take. And also next, we are going to talk about inflectional classes. Not all words inflect the same way. Languages often have inflectional classes. It is a group of words that share the same pattern. Take Latin as the classic example. It has five noun classes, each with different endings for case and numbers. Some classes are predictable by gender or stem type. For example, first declension nouns are mostly feminine, with stems ending in "a". It's a letter A with a stripe on top of it. And same happens with verbs. Latin has four conjugations, each defined by a team vowel a, e, and I. I think it's a letter A with a stripe on top, E with stripe on top, and then I in between two stripes, and then I with a stripe on top. I don't know how to spell it correctly, so please forgive me if I spell it wrong. Let's continue. And these vowels don't carry meaning, but they tell you what ending the verb will take in the paradigm. The takeaway: inflection isn't random. It's organized into classes, and these classes define the shape of the paradigm. And now let's move on to two important concepts, which is suppletion and syncretism. Suppletion happens when one form in the paradigm uses a completely unrelated base. The clearest English example is go versus went. There is zero morphological connection between go and went. Went is historically borrowed from another verb entirely, and syncretism, on the other hand, happens when multiple cells in the paradigm share the same form. Old English verbs, for example, use the same form for all plural persons. Sorbian nouns show even more syncretism. Often multiple cases share the same ending. Both phenomena show that paradigms aren't always neat or symmetrical. And before we conclude these meetings, let's connect these ideas to productivity and types of inflection as shown in this diagram. Should I put it here? Okay, forget about it. Well, in this diagram, in these slides, inflection is generally fully projective. If a language has plural suffix or a past tense pattern, it applies across almost all relevant words. But inflection itself comes in two types. The first type is inherent inflections, which is things like number or tense, which reflect the speaker's intended meaning. And the second one is the contextual inflection, things like agreement or case, which are triggered by syntax. This distinction matters because inherent inflection adds information, while contextual inflection keeps the structure grammatically coherent. Inflectional rules almost always apply across the entire vocabulary. If a language marks progressive with ing, every verb can take it. If it marks plural with s, new nouns also take s. The only exceptions are marginal verbs like forego, where the past tense form forwent sounds unnatural to modern speakers, but these cases are rare. Languages treat some form as inherent, built into the meaning, and some as contextual, triggered by sentence structure. Gender and number for nouns are inherent; they belong to the word. Case is contextual; you only mark it based on syntactic function. Similarly, tense is inherent to verbs, but present number agreement is contextual. So, the same inflection category can be inherent for one word class and contextual for another. And finally, we are going to close this. We close this by contrasting inflection with derivation one more time. Inflection never changes a word's category, it only adjusts the form of grammatical context. Derivation creates new lexemes; it can change meaning, category, or both, and derivation is often less productive than inflection. In short, inflection fits a word into grammar, and derivation puts a new vocabulary. To wrap this up, the slides summarize the core ideas. Inflection is essential for expressing grammatical relations without changing core meaning. Languages vary enormously in how many inflectional categories they use. English is unusually weak in inflection, relying more on syntax and auxiliary verbs. And morphological systems evolve. Language regularly simplify, restructure, or reshape their inflectional rules. And we close this example and close this, with examples from highly inflected languages. There are Yupik, Mohawk, Washoe, Koyukon, West Greenlandic, and others. This just illustrates just how diverse inflection can be across the world. That is all from us, and see you in the next video.